The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
You've got a slightly more lively, you've probably got the liveliest interview I've ever done.
Well, I'm grateful for that, and I will not do you any wrong, I assure you.
Don't worry, the first email from Washington has already come in.
Well, I tell you what, you're going to get a lot more, because as the day goes by, I can assure you they're going to be...
Actually, this is a friendly email. It's an invitation to listen to a speech by Ted Cruz. Ted's an interesting guy. I think he may have an issue with citizenship and natural born. I'm not sure he can be the Republican candidate.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
Yeah, no, if I were advising the Republican Party, if the Republicans took my advice, I would say don't go with Ted Cruz for president or vice presidential candidate. He is not eligible, in my view. And I don't draw a distinction. When I say that Obama is not eligible, I don't give a tinker's cuss whether he's white, black, Democrat, or Republican. I actually say the same in my book about McCain. McCain wasn't eligible either because he was born in downtown Panama, in a hospital. He wasn't born on Coco Solo Marine Corps Air Station, as he claims. The hospital wasn't even built. And you don't go around Marine Corps stations and see air stations and see women giving birth all the time. It's just not usual. There's no way he was born on the air station. He was born downtown. The story.
But I thought McCain did a smart thing by going to the United States Senate and actually getting a bill passed that says he was eligible.
Well, yeah, but that bill did not amend the U.S. Constitution. That bill, the status of that bill is constitutional lawyers. I'm a constitutional lawyer. I look at that bill and I say, sniffy, don't like it. If you want to amend the U.S. Constitution, you've got to amend the U.S. Constitution. Do it properly. It has not been amended. Birth on a U.S. air base or a military base abroad does not count. I think you have to amend the Constitution to bring it in. I think it's a good idea, but until it's brought in by way of amendment, the U.S. Constitution says you have to be natural born. That means birth in a state, in my view. Birth in a territory is not sufficient. I even go so far as to say that Barry Goldwater, and constitutional scholars in America have questioned Barry Goldwater's right to be president. Because
what about Mitt Romney?
There was never a problem with Mitt Romney because he was born in the United States as a U.S. citizen. There was an issue. There's a Mexican connection in the case of Romney. There was an issue regarding Mexico, but when I looked at Romney, I thought that he was probably eligible. I'm surprised that Republicans didn't do more background research, but of course they realized that with Obama being born in Mombasa, it didn't matter. Nobody's going to query Romney's eligibility to stand with Obama being wholly uneligible or ineligible. I suspect that Romney might not have been eligible, but there's a doubt. But on balance, I think he was. But it's not. I can't give him 100% clean bill of health. I doubt that Barry Goldwater was eligible because he was born in Arizona Territory before it became a state. He missed out by a couple of years, and in my view, you have to be born in a state. I don't think birth in a territory is sufficient. I don't think, for example, you can be born in Puerto Rico. And I fail to see how you can draw a distinction between Puerto Rico and Arizona before it became a state.
What about Marco Rubio?
He's out. No, he's out. As far as I'm concerned, he's not eligible. I think you have to look. The American constitutional requirement for eligibility to president is very tightly drawn. You don't just have to be a U.S. citizen, which Marco Rubio is. You have to be natural born. And
correct.
Exactly. And on the most liberal interpretation of natural born, in my view, that requires birth in the United States, probably to U.S. citizen parents, but certainly birth in a state in the United States. I don't think the founding fathers would have been happy with foreign parents.
What about Bobby Jindal?
Jindal not looked at. Not looked at Jindal. He's very able. I mean, these people could all serve in a cabinet. Ted Cruz would be obviously an obvious candidate for the cabinet, but I don't think he can be a candidate for president. Incidentally, when I say that there are scholars who think that the parents ought to be US born as well, or US citizens, that's not a universal view. The majority view of constitutional lawyers in the States, I think, is that if you're born in the United States to foreign parents and you are a US citizen by reason of your birth, that is, if your status is US citizen at birth, that is sufficient, even if one of your parents is foreign. So if your father's a US citizen, you become a US citizen by birth, your mother's foreign, that's okay. That's the better view. But I have to say that is stretching a little bit from what George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all the other great founding fathers, half of whom, by the way, were English barristers, trained in England. The barristers who drew up the US Constitution, I think, intended that both parents had to be Americans as well as the child.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's a minority view. The Supreme Court, I think, would go with born a US citizen in a state that was a state at the time you were born, with at least one parent a US citizen.
Right now, I think the current Supreme Court we have it would approve a dog running for president.
Well, they have been a bit of a disappointment. I've got to be slightly careful. I've met a couple of your Supreme Court justices.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.